Good morning, Board. Thank you for the opportunity to talk. My name is Paul Jukes. I've come down from the Whitsundays in North Queensland, where prior to Cyclone Debbie I was managing about $80 million worth of holiday assets. I was going to talk to you about insurance price hikes and how people I know do not have insurance because they cannot afford it, but a couple of weeks ago more catastrophe has directly impacted me. You see, when I was a young man, I used to hike and explore in Lamington National Park with my girlfriend. She became my wife and later the mother of my two daughters. We used to enjoy the timeless magic of the enduring rainforest, so much so that it was her dying wish that her ashes be scattered in the rainforest. Home to Antarctic beech trees that have been there since the time of the dinosaurs, truly an ancient place so old that it seemed immortal. So her ashes were scattered at Binnaburra, Rainforest Lodge. A wooden chair was erected in her memory. Every year for the last 17 years, my daughters would go to Binnaburra with the rest of their family. It was one of the few connections they had with their mother, who died when they were very young. Well, a couple of weeks ago, the rainforest burned. It simply burned, taking Binnaburra, her chair and the site of her ashes with it. This rainforest has never burned before. Old growth rainforest does not simply burn. But climate change induced extreme weather, set up circumstances for that to all go up in smoke. This is not normal. Last year we had old growth rainforest burn up near my home at Youngala. Now, I've been a customer of Suncorp for maybe 40 years, since I was a kid, before Suncorp even existed. I joined Metropolitan Permanent Building Society when I was in primary school, about the same age my kids were when they first went up to Binnaburra to visit their mum's memorial. The Building Society became Metway, which became Suncorp, Metway, which became Suncorp. I still have that original bank account, my main account. I've been loyal with you all that time. However, 40 years of loyalty now hangs in the balance, the same balance the planet hangs in, and your decision to eliminate exposure to all fossil fuels, including oil and gas, and to help prevent further climate catastrophe will decide that balance for my loyalty and also the planet. So while Suncorp uses strategies such as targeted repricing to attempt to cover itself against climate impacts, it needs to be recognised that the cost to us, your customers, of the impacts of climate change go way beyond expensive insurance and damaged property. Your targeted repricing does not cover us from catastrophe. Now, I accept that it isn't Suncorp's job to protect its customers from the personal impacts global warming is increasingly causing, like the one I just described, although I do think Suncorp needs to make sure it is no longer making any contribution to the crisis. However, it is your job to provide insurance, and the climate crisis seems to be impacting your ability to do that too. In North Queensland, where I live, we are seeing premiums significantly increase. For example, using Suncorp's online quote tool, houses in Airlie Beach, Rockhampton, Port Douglas and Townsville were quoted yearly premiums well over 1% of the total price. One house in Rockhampton was quoted a yearly premium of 9% of the total property price. What does the board have to say to customers? You're charging annual premiums close to 1/10 of the value of their properties to cover impacts you're helping to make worse by insuring more fossil fuel, including oil and gas.
Thank you, Mr Jukes. I think you've raised a few issues there, and I'll just make a couple of comments, and then I'm actually going to ask Mr Dransfield to make a few comments on what we've been doing around the resilience in the North work in conjunction with the Queensland Government in this particular case. I'd just like to firstly acknowledge that I did visit the Whitsundays areas that were affected by Cyclone Debbie last year, and with Andrew Mulgrove, our then head of claims. And I know, again, what a shocking experience it is for families to live through that. And I'd also like to acknowledge your personal loss, which I'm sure other people in the room would share that. In terms of the issues you've raised around premium pricing in areas where there are higher levels of catastrophes or calamities, as you know, we are in the business of insurance, and the business of insurance is about pricing risk. And this is why the work that Gary and his team have been leading around the resilience in the north in particular is so important. But before I turn to Gary, I'd just like to again reconfirm that Suncorp is on an active path in being in addressing climate change. And we've actually just put a slide up there on our climate change action plan, and there has been a lot of work that's been achieved over the last couple of years, and I'm sure everyone in this room would agree that this is a journey. There is a lot of transition to work through. I mentioned before the very, very low amounts of exposure we have to thermal coal. We have shadow carbon pricing in the context of oil and gas. We will revisit this every year as new alternative forms of energy become available. But at the moment, we are really committed to doing the best we can, and we are absolutely, as I said in my opening remarks, we really see the importance of weather and climate as critical to the future sustainability of our business. Gary, are you happy just to comment just on the really quite powerful work that's been happening over the last couple of years around the Northern Resilience Program?
Thank you, Chairman, and I'm very sorry about the loss of your wife's memorial, Mr Jukes. In terms of the work we do with all levels of government to try to moderate the risk pricing impacts on premium, one particular one the Chairman's referring to is our Protecting the North package. So we worked with James Cook University in Townsville to understand what types of resilience activity homeowners could undertake to their properties to mitigate and reduce the impact of cyclone damage to them. And there are 5 types of resilience investments that homeowners can undertake, and then we provide premium reductions up to 20% of the total premium based on the number of those mitigations that a homeowner's able to undertake. And I think one of the things that Suncorp's demonstrated in Roma with the building of a flood levy and what we then did to reduce premiums by between 40 and 50% for homeowners is that when we can see people taking actions to reduce risk, or when risk is being reduced by investment by levels of government to mitigate risk, we will absolutely pass that on to homeowners and to make sure that it's being reflected in the price that people pay. But we really understand the impact that the high premiums have on people's incomes and disposable incomes, and we certainly commit to work very hard with communities and all levels of government to try to find ways to reduce and mitigate risk and then pass that back through reduced premium.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks, Mr Jukes.
Yeah, so I'd just like to acknowledge also, I think it is great work that you're doing. You are obviously playing a leading role in many of the areas. I do acknowledge that you've made a commitment to divest, and there's a strategy to divest from thermal coal, and what I'm asking you to do is to take that through to oil and gas, and I'll be looking forward in the next month when I'll be making a decision about my loyalty and where I'm going to go with that. So hopefully someone in your team can make that happen. You say that there's a movement in that direction. I'm just encouraging you to actually be a leader in that as well.
Thanks, Mr Jukes.